If you believe every victim deserves to be remembered and every truth deserves to be told, subscribe to the Crime Narrator. These stories live on because you're here to hear them.
The morning of the funeral felt heavier than the sky above Frederick, Colorado, as if the clouds themselves understood what the community had lost. Cars lined the streets near the church, engines quiet, doors closing softly, voices lowered out of instinct. This was not just a gathering of mourners. It was a town trying to understand how 3 lives, Shanann Watts and her daughters, Bella and Celeste, known lovingly as Cece, could be taken in a way that still felt unreal. People clutched tissues before they even stepped inside, already exhausted by weeks of shock, headlines, and questions that refused to settle. Inside the church, the air was thick with grief. White flowers framed the front, chosen not because white felt right, but because nothing else could capture innocence so clearly. Photos of Sean smiled back at the crowd, confident, vibrant, alive in a way that made her absence ache even more. Nearby were pictures of Bella and Cece, frozen in moments of childhood joy, missing teeth smiles, playful eyes, laughter you could almost hear if you stared long enough. The pews filled slowly, each person carrying their own version of disbelief. Some had known the family personally. Others came because this loss felt personal anyway. If you're watching this and stories like this matter to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue telling the stories that deserve to be remembered, even when they hurt to hear. Sean had been many things to many people. A friend who checked in, a mother who documented milestones with pride, a woman rebuilding her life after health struggles and financial strain. She was outspoken, sometimes polarizing, but undeniably devoted to her girls. Bella, the quieter of the two, was thoughtful beyond her years, always watching, always processing. Cece was energy incarnate, fearless and loud, her joy impossible to contain. Together, they formed a family that looked, at least on the surface, like countless others navigating the pressures of modern life. But beneath that surface, cracks had been forming. Financial stress, marital tension, unspoken resentments, things many families face, but rarely with consequences this devastating. When Shanann and her daughters were reported missing, the community rallied immediately. Candlelight vigils glowed in the dark, neighbors searched fields, strangers shared photos online, hoping visibility would bring answers. For a brief moment, hope lingered. Maybe they'd be found. Maybe this would end differently. Didn't. As the truth emerged, hope was replaced with horror. The details were almost unbearable, and yet people couldn't look away. How could something so monstrous happen within a family home? How could the person meant to protect them become the source of their destruction? These questions echoed through the church on the day of the funeral, hanging unspoken in the air, because no answer could ever be enough. The service itself was quiet, restrained, as if everyone was afraid that any sudden sound might shatter what little composure remained. A pastor spoke of love, of faith, of holding on to memories when understanding fails. Friends shared stories. Shanann's determination, Bella's gentleness, Cece's fearless hugs. The case had already become a national obsession, dissected in interviews, courtrooms, and online forums. But here, on this day, the spectacle faded. What remained was raw grief. Parents held their children closer. Friends promised to check on one another. A community silently vowed never to forget. As the coffins were carried out, one behind the other, a collective sob rippled through the crowd. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was the sound of finality settling in. Sean, Bella, and Cece were gone, and nothing, no verdict, no sentence, no explanation, could bring them back. This funeral did more than mark an ending. It fractured a sense of safety. It forced people to confront an uncomfortable truth, that sometimes the greatest dangers don't come from strangers in the dark, but from within the walls we trust the most. And as the doors of the church closed behind the last mourner, the question lingered, heavy and unresolved. How does a community move forward when innocence is buried alongside its dead? Stay with me because this story doesn't end here. In the next chapter, We'll look at the days leading up to the tragedy, and the warning signs that were missed, ignored, or misunderstood. The days after Sean and Bella and Cece were reported missing felt unreal, like the community was holding its breath without knowing why. At first, there was still hope. Hope built on routine, on the belief that a mother wouldn't simply vanish, that two little girls wouldn't disappear without a trace. Neighbors gathered in small clusters outside their homes, replaying the same questions over and over again. Had anyone seen Sean and that morning? Had the girls been heard laughing in the yard? Every detail, no matter how small, suddenly felt important. Candlelight vigils began almost immediately. People who had never met Sean and showed up anyway, holding candles, whispering prayers, hugging strangers who shared the same uneasy fear. Photos of Bella and Cece circulated online. Their bright smiles, their innocent faces, turning them into children the entire community felt it knew. Shanann's image followed closely behind, strong, confident, a mother who documented her life openly. That openness made the silence even louder. As the investigation unfolded, tension crept into every conversation. News vans parked along the streets, reporters speaking in hushed but urgent tones. Social media became a double-edged sword. On one side, people organizing searches and sharing updates, and on the other, rumors spreading faster than facts. Every new post was dissected, every interview replayed, and through it all, the same question echoed. Where are they? Then came the moment when hope began to crack. Authorities confirmed what many feared but didn't want to say out loud. The search was no longer just about finding them, it was about understanding what had happened. The shift was subtle but devastating. The community felt it collectively, like a weight pressing down on everyone at once. Conversations grew quieter. Candles burned lower. When the confirmation finally came, it hit like a shockwave. Shanann, Bella, and Cece were gone. The words didn't feel real even as they were spoken aloud. Grief didn't arrive gently. It rushed in, overwhelming and chaotic. People cried openly in grocery store aisles, in parking lots, in front of their televisions. Parents hugged their children tighter that night, unable to stop imagining the fear and confusion those little girls might have felt. Plans for the funeral brought the community together in a way no one had expected, yet never wanted. Churches filled beyond capacity. Flowers arrived in such numbers they had to be arranged outside. Stuffed animals, handwritten notes, and balloons piled up, each one a silent message of sorrow and apology. Sorry this happened. Sorry we couldn't protect you. Sorry we only knew you after you were gone. As the day approached, the air felt heavy, like even the sky understood the significance of what was about to happen. People traveled from other towns, other states, drawn by a sense that this loss was bigger than one family. It was a reminder of fragility, of how quickly normal life could fracture. If you're finding yourself drawn into this story, take a moment here, pause, reflect, and if you think stories like this deserve to be remembered and told with care, quietly like the video, or share it so others can remember too. The funeral itself was not just a goodbye. It was a breaking point. When the small coffins were carried in, there was an audible sound. Gasps, sobs, the kind of grief that escapes before you can control it. Bella and Cece's caskets were impossibly small, decorated with soft colors that felt cruelly out of place. Shanann's followed, and in that moment the reality became unavoidable. This was not a nightmare. This was final. Speakers struggled to find words strong enough to hold the weight of what had been lost. Friends spoke of Shanann's determination, her love for her children, the way she filled a room with energy. Others spoke of Bella's gentleness, her quiet intelligence, and Cece's wild joy, her laughter that seemed too big for her tiny body. Each story brought smiles through tears, brief flashes of warmth in a sea of heartbreak. Outside, people who couldn't fit inside listened through speakers, standing shoulder to shoulder with strangers. No one felt like a stranger that day. Everyone was connected by the same grief, the same anger, the same unanswered questions. And as the service ended, there was no sense of closure, only a shared understanding that something in this community had changed forever. If you're still listening, stay with me. Subscribe if you want to hear how this story continues, because what followed the funeral would force the world to confront truths far darker than anyone had imagined. The truth didn't come all at once. It rarely does. It arrived in fragments, through contradictions, pauses that lasted too long, and answers that didn't quite fit the questions. By the time the community gathered again, this time not in hope, but in grief, everyone understood that the story they had been told was never the real one. As investigators pressed deeper, the image of the worried husband standing on the porch unraveled. Timelines collapsed. Phone records spoke louder than words. Surveillance footage filled in gaps where explanations failed. And slowly, painfully, the reality emerged. Sean and Bella and Cece were not missing. They were gone. When the confirmation came, it hit the community like a physical force. People who had prayed for miracles now struggled to process loss. Handwritten notes left by people who had never met the family but felt connected all the same. Because stories like this force us to confront uncomfortable truths about trust, about relationships, about how quickly a life can shatter without warning. And if this story has stayed with you, if it's made you pause, reflect, or even hold someone a little closer tonight, consider sharing it. Stories like this matter, not for the spectacle but for the remembrance. For Shanann, for Bella, for Cece. Their lives were more than the way they ended. And as long as their names are spoken, their story continues, not as a headline, but as a reminder of the fragility of life, the importance of community, and the responsibility we all share to see, to listen, and to care. This wasn't just a funeral. It was the moment a community realized it would never be the same.